Okay, so I haven't done one of these in a long time. I haven't done a video for a very long time. I've not done a tier list for even longer. And I just thought to myself, what better time to make a tier list? What better time to make a video than the start of the World Cup? We are, what, 3 days now into the World Cup. We've had 6 or 7 games. And although this isn't a big enough sample size to judge teams, I think it is a good enough time to make my predictions on how teams are going to perform. We did this, I think it was last week or the week before on the podcast, on the Players' Choice podcast. And that is kind of my motivation to be making this video here today. Some people on the panel, although I really like them, their biases and their lack of football knowledge at times made that list very, very nasty. Very nasty. And I thought I'm going to make my own list with my own criteria, and there won't be, or at least there won't be as much biased going into the list. I try to stay as impartial as I can. I try to be as impartial as I can. And so we're going to get into this tier list and see which teams are the favorites to win the whole thing, and which teams, are just there for vibes. My criteria for this video is the following. One, you need to have a good overall squad. So you need to have a good goalkeeper, good defense, good midfield, and good attack. And you need to have that star player within your team. You need to have that it factor. It can be a player, it can be a manager, it can be just how you've been playing for the last few months, but you need to have a good overall squad, and also that it factor within your team. I know it's very hard to quantify that it factor, but I think that when we get into these teams, I think most of you will understand what I'm getting to. And then third of all, you need your team, your nation, whatever you want to call it, needs to have performed well for the past 2 years. So we've had competitions last year, both the Euros, the Copa America, and more recently we've also had the AFCON. So I think we've had enough time to see where some of these teams are at. So, and also the qualifying. That's another thing that I looked at, how you performed in the competitions, the qualifying, Nations League, pretty much that. And without wasting any more time, we're going to get straight into it, and we're going to start with Argentina. And following my criteria, again, this is the second time I'm recording this video, so this is going to go a lot faster. Last time it took me 20 minutes. I think that this time it will probably take me 15 minutes to record this. So let's just get straight into it. Argentina, I think Argentina have a very good squad, and if you're talking about that it factor, they have Lionel Messi. The attack isn't as strong as some of the other teams in the competition, but it is good enough, and they have the it factor, and their performances for the last 2 years have been amazing. They've won the Copa America. They beat Brazil in the final, who in my opinion are the favorite teams to win the whole thing, but we're going to get into that in a second. So Argentina, they tick every single box, so they go straight into the S tier. Then you get into a team like Belgium, and I've loved to put Belgium somewhere around the A and S tier, but this is a team that constantly underperforms. You look back at the 2018 World Cup, you look back at the 2020 Euros that were played last year, and this team just constantly underperforms. And the manager Martinez, on the big moments like in the 2018 World Cup against France in the semi-finals, when he didn't really have to do much, he messed with the team too much, and that made them to lose. But again, the overall squad isn't as good anymore. They do have that X factor in Kevin De Bruyne, but their recent performances haven't been that good, and the manager, in my opinion, I don't know if he can really be trusted, or at least he hasn't really shown the capacity to take that team to the next level. And for that reason, I think Belgium should be on the B tier. Then you go into a team like Brazil, who again is another team just like Argentina. I think that these are the only two teams. There's also another team that takes every single box, but I'm going to dock them a few points. Two teams actually that I'm going to dock them a few points, and I'll explain in a minute why. But just talking about Brazil for now, they have an amazing overall squad. They have that it factor in Neymar. They have the performances for the last 2 years. Although they did lose to Argentina in the final, they got to the final. They performed amazingly throughout the whole tournament. And when they lost to Argentina, it wasn't like it was a blowout win from Argentina. It wasn't like they just battered them. It was a very close game. And if I have Argentina up there and Brazil came really, really close to beating them, I think Brazil should be at least around the same tier. So yeah, Brazil take every single box. And they were also very, very good in the qualifying rounds. I don't think they lost a single game. I think they were unbeaten, and they scored, I think it was at least 2 goals in every game. I think I might be wrong, but they did play. I might be wrong in terms of the goals that they scored. I think it was at least 2 goals in every single qualifying match. But overall, Brazil were outstanding nonetheless. So they go on the S tier as well. Then you get into a team like Cameroon. And the teams that are on the kind of the lower tiers, I'm going to try to get through them a lot quicker, because if you don't really have a case to winning the whole thing, there's no really a point for me to be trying to make an argument for you. So Cameroon, D tier. Canada, I think that they go in the C tier. Costa Rica, another team in the D tier. Croatia is a team who a few years back, the few years back, in the 2018 World Cup, where England was winning 1-0 against Croatia in the semi-final, the team once again crumbled, and you can blame some of the changes that Southgate made. And if you're looking at last year, for example, England were winning 1-0 within the first 5 minutes, and Southgate decided for some reason to continue the pragmatic defensive football that they were playing for the whole match, and that costed them. So I think England have a very good overall squad. They have that star factor, those star players, that it factor, and they've put up performances for the last 2 years. But again, because I don't really trust their manager, I'm putting them on the A tier. There's another team with very similar circumstances, Portugal, but we'll get into Portugal in a second. And then France, a team who realistically should be up here if everyone was healthy, but because you're losing Pogba and Kante, 2 of the most essential players in this team, 2 players who, when they play together for France never lose, 2 players that managed to help this team to a World Cup title in 2018. I think that a team as good as France, when you take 2 essential pieces like that, not just 1, but 2 at the same time, I don't think you can be on the same tier. And then they also lost Karim Benzema, the current Ballon d'Or winner, the Ballon d'Or holder. So I don't think that they can be on the same team. I'm not going to knock them too much, because I still think that they have a very good squad. I think they have the best defense in the whole competition. I think they have Mbappe, who is an not up-and-coming star, but the up-and-coming guy to take over the number 1 spot. Is really between him and Haaland at the moment. But yeah, again, I don't think that this is as strong of a France squad, so I do have to put them on the A tier. Germany, I think that Germany's biggest and they also performed very well in the qualifying rounds. The qualifying rounds in the Nations League. They didn't perform as well in the Euros, but I think that their performances on the Nations League really balanced that out when it came to placing them on the tier list. And now again, I was going to put France in the B tier anyways. So I think A tier is a good place for them. Then Germany, who I think really struggle from not having that number 9 presence. You could play Muller up front, which wouldn't be a bad idea. But they don't really have that world-class striker that Germany usually bring to these competitions. A very good overall squad. Star player, yeah, you could point out a few within the team. Good performances for the last 2 years, nothing outstanding, and for that, I should realistically be putting Germany on the B tier, but I think they can be either Denmark or Belgium quite easily, so I'm going to put them on the A tier. It is on the lower end of the A tier, but I think Germany are definitely on the A tier. Then move on to a team like Ghana, who in my opinion are on the D tier. Iran, D tier as well. Japan, who I would love to have higher, but they are on the C tier. Mexico, another team on the C tier. Morocco, a a team who I don't think is as good as a lot of people are talking about. I think Morocco are going to be another team on the D tier. Just to explain the tiers quite quickly, D tier is one of the teams that I think will perhaps go out, not perhaps, the teams that will go out in the group stage and who will be lucky to get into the round of 16, let alone compete in the round of 16. C tier are the teams that I think will make it, that have a chance of making it out the group and making it into the groups, the round of 16, but nothing higher than that. Then the B tier is the teams that will get into the round of 16 and can perhaps make it to the quarterfinals. And the A tier is the teams that can get to the semi-finals, and the S tier are the teams who are the favourites to win the whole thing. Absolute favourites. They are kind of expected to win if you want. Netherlands, again, is one of the teams that that made me want to make this video, because on the podcast episode, a lot of the people that were in it were overhyping this team massively, and I think that Netherlands have one of the best defenses in the competition. Their midfield is okay, it's just their attack is lackluster, very, very lackluster. And when you're talking about the World Cup and winning the World Cup, if you have a lackluster lackluster attack, it usually doesn't end well for you. When you're relying on Gakpo, Bergwijn and Depay to get you the goals to win the whole thing, I don't think that's ideal. So for that reason, I can't have the Netherlands as high as the teams on the A tier. But at the same time, I think that they are quite high up within the B tier. So I think the B tier is quite solid for now. We have a team like Peru who will be on the D tier. Poland, who I was torn between the C and D tier, but I'm going to put Poland on the C tier. We have a team like Portugal who some people could argue they could be on the S tier. I just don't think they are. They have a good overall squad. They have the star playing Cristiano Ronaldo, but then they haven't really had the performances for the last 2 years. They got knocked down the round of 16 of the Euros. They struggled to qualify for the World Cup, losing to Serbia, who we will get into in a second. And again, it's very similar to England. I don't trust Fernando Santos. I think Fernando Santos and Southgate are two managers who are letting their teams down, who are pulling their teams back in terms of where the team could be when you're just talking about talent within the team. So for that reason, I think Portugal are on the A tier. They aren't quite on the S tier. Qatar, D tier. I think that they're just happy to be there. Qatar in this World Cup for vibes. Saudi Arabia, again, they just beat Argentina. I think that's a one-off. They're on the D tier. At best, they're on the C tier. But again, D tier for Saudi Arabia. Scotland, D tier. Senegal, I think with Mane, they could have been on the B tier, but I think Senegal are now on the C tier. And yes, you could argue, how does one player completely put a whole tier down? But again, it's what I said with the star play of the star impact in these competitions. It matters. Historically, you can look at the history of the World Cup, the history of knockout competitions. Having those influential star players within your teams that can take over at any moment matters, and Senegal not having Mane, I think, is going to hurt them. Serbia are a team that I'm going to put them in the B tier. They have a good overall squad. They don't quite have the it factor, the start players, but Vlahovic, Mitrovic, and some of the other guys up front are good enough to take over some games and get them over the hump. And the performances for the last 2 years, Serbia were one of the best teams in the qualifying rounds, playing in Europe. They weren't just qualifying in, some of these other continents. Not to disrespect some of these other continents, but the competition in Europe is just that much higher. And Serbia performed some of their competition. They beat Portugal in the last game of the qualifying group to make it straight into the World Cup, making Portugal have to go through a playoffs. And yes, you could question some of the refereeing in the game towards the end, especially with that Ronaldo penalty. But the fact of the matter is that Serbia performed well in the qualifying rounds, and that was one of my criteria to ranking these teams. And since they tick that box, and since they tick some of the other boxes, Serbia definitely deserve to be at least on the B tier. Korea, lots of them higher, but they're on the D tier. Spain is a team who's lacking in experience. They are lacking in star power up front. I think that their attack's going to be between Ferran Torres, Morata and Tolero or Ansu Fati on the left. And then the midfield, who they're going to have Rodri, who is the best CDM in the world in my opinion, but then you're also going to have to play with Gavi and Pedri, who in the near future are going to be excellent players. By the next World Cup, they are going to be influential players in this Spain team. I actually believe that, but they're just too young, too inexperienced for me to put Spain any higher. So Spain, realistically, I should have them on the C tier if I was really fair and really critical, but I'm going to put Spain on the B tier. Then Switzerland, I'm going to put them on the higher side of the C tier. I think they could be any of the teams in the tier above. So they're definitely on the higher side of the C tier. Then Tunisia, who are going to be on the D tier. The USA, again, when your best player, when your star player is Christian Pulisic, a player who has underperformed in the last 2 years massively. I'm not saying Pulisic is a bad player, but if he is that guy for your team, I think that's worrying. C tier for USA. At the absolute best, USA can make it out of the round of 16, and that's like their ceiling. I see. Then Uruguay, B tier. And this is my list. Thank you very much for everyone that's watched so far. And if you watch it towards the end, just a quick rundown of what my tier looks like. So on the S tier, the teams expected to win the whole thing, I have Argentina and Brazil. On the A tier, the teams that do have a chance to winning the whole thing and perhaps getting to the semi-finals and upsetting either team. On the S tier, I have England, France, Germany and Portugal. 3 of these teams who, if they win their group, they're going to be in the same bracket. On the B tier, I have the Netherlands, Denmark, Belgium, Serbia, Spain and Uruguay. On the C tier, I have Switzerland, Canada, Croatia, Japan, Mexico, Poland, Senegal and the USA. And on the D tier, I have Cameroon, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Ghana, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Peru, Iran, Morocco, Scotland, Tunisia and South Korea. As I say at the end of every video, this is just the beginning of something special, and thank you very much for watching the video until the end. If you enjoyed this type of content, subscribe. There will be a lot more coming your way. It's the World Cup season. I'll see you soon.